She was barely 14, a child herself, and already expected to give birth. This wasn't a fairy tale. For countless girls in medieval Europe, marriage wasn't a celebration of love, but a contract signed in blood, a death sentence disguised as tradition. Today, we're pulling back the velvet curtain of history to reveal the terrifying truth about childbirth in the Middle Ages, a side that history books often sanitize or ignore completely. They called it a blessing from God, a woman's sacred duty. But for most, it was a curse, whispered in the shadows of stone castles and humble cottages alike. Imagine a world with no modern medicine, no anesthesia, no understanding of germs. The only tools available were prayers and pain. In this era, childbirth wasn't a beautiful miracle. It was a brutal battle for survival, fought on a straw mattress, soaked in sweat and fear. Let's talk about the noble brides, the ones we see in portraits and read about in romanticized epics. These young women were chosen for their bloodlines, their strategic value in forging alliances, not for their life expectancy. Their worth was measured by their ability to produce an heir, preferably a male one. The pressure was immense, and failure was not an option. Once married, the countdown began. The wedding night itself could be a traumatic, brutal affair, and for some, the ordeal of childbirth began within a year. Now picture the birthing room. It wasn't a sterile, bright hospital ward. It was often a dark, crowded, and stuffy chamber, filled with female relatives, midwives, and sometimes a priest. Windows were sealed shut, fires blazed in the hearth, all based on the belief that cold air was dangerous. This created a perfect breeding ground for bacteria. The only comfort offered was a sip of wine or a holy relic to clutch. The prevailing medical and religious belief was that pain was a woman's punishment for Eve's original sin. Some doctors even argued that pain purified the soul, so they simply let women scream, believing their suffering was divinely ordained. The process could last for days. Midwives, though often experienced, relied on folklore and tradition. Their hands, and any rudimentary tools they used, were unwashed. If the baby was in the wrong position, the options were horrifying. Maneuvers to turn the baby were agonizingly painful and often caused internal injuries to both mother and child. In the most desperate cases, a destructive procedure called an embryotomy might be performed, a grim choice made to save the mother by sacrificing the baby. But even that was no guarantee of survival. The greatest killers weren't the moments of active labor, but the silent predators that followed: infection, a fever, and blood loss. Puerperal fever, or childbed fever, was a rampant and mysterious killer. A woman might survive the delivery, feel a wave of relief, only to develop a raging fever a day or two later. Without antibiotics, it was almost always fatal. Postpartum hemorrhage, the uncontrollable bleeding after birth, could drain a woman's life away in mere hours. These complications took more lives than many of the famous medieval wars we study in school. Think about the psychological toll. Some brides died before their first wedding anniversary. Others survived, but lived a life of perpetual grief, losing child after child to the same brutal cycle. Imagine bearing 10 children and watching every single one of them perish, either at birth or in infancy. The church, the most powerful institution of the time, praised fertility and large families. It celebrated the birth of heirs, yet it remained silent as countless women bled to death. Their deaths were seen as tragic but natural, a part of God's mysterious plan. For every king who sat on a throne, for every noble line that continued, there were countless forgotten mothers whose names are lost to time. Their stories weren't carved into monuments or sung by bards. Their sacrifice was the silent, bloody foundation upon which dynasties were built. This was the dark side of childbirth, the stark, terrifying reality that history, with its focus on battles and kings, tried to hide. The next time you see a historical drama or read a novel about medieval romance, remember the women behind the fiction. Remember the 14-year-old girl facing a trial more fearsome than any knight's joust, armed with nothing but courage and a desperate hope to survive. Their stories deserve to be told, not to horrify, but to honor their resilience and to appreciate how far we have come. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you found this glimpse into history eye-opening, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more hidden stories. We'd love to have you in our community. See you in the next one.